Welcome back to our college football postgame coverage here on CBS Sports HQ. Penn State dominates SMU with a final score from Happy Valley in the first round of the college football playoff to advance. Final score 38-10. With the win, Penn State will now face Boise State in the quarterfinal round of the playoff at the Fiesta Bowl on December 31st, New Year's Eve. That game set to kick off at 7:30 Eastern, and odds were just released for this game where Penn State is a 10.5-point favorite. As we welcome you back inside our CBS Sports HQ studios, I'm Jordan Giorgio alongside Mackenzie Brooks, Danny Kanell, and Leger Douzable with you. Kent, I'll come to you first. A little surprised with that line?
Very surprised with that line. The sports line model, we project the score to be 38-18, right? So a 20-point victory for Penn State. Now, I don't think odds makers were going to set that line at 19.5. They have a job to do, which is partially, recovering from all these blowouts, making these games seem like they're going to be closer than they are. I don't think they believe in a 10.5. I think they're true. They would probably put it around 14.5 if they were really setting it the way they want to. Now, I think the irony of this is I think Penn State is going to pull a Boise State on Boise State. You look at down the stretch, Boise State playing lesser opponents. It wasn't the offense lighting up teams. It was the defense taking care of the lesser opponent, holding them to 21 or less. And that's exactly what Penn State's about to pull on them, in my opinion.
So that accounts for neutral field, right? They account for that in there. So it'd be a 23-point favorite probably in Penn State. I think that number's going to jump. I think once the money, I think people will hammer that. It probably will settle around that 13.5 would be my guess. There are going to be a lot of people that point out what Ashton Jeanty did to Oregon, on the road in Eugene. I'm not surprised Penn State is a heavy favorite. We haven't seen a close game yet. I think a lot of people are going to want to see it. Maybe they bet with their, hearts as opposed to what the actual football on the field is going to tell you. That'd probably be me rooting for an underdog story to want to win. Spencer Danielson already felt slighted when he said, oh, Penn State was given the clear path. They're going to try to do everything they can. I think you'd have to see a game where Penn State screws it up. Like where Drew Aller, kind of like Kevin James, some mistakes out there on the field. I think Boise State would have to play their cleanest game of the year, and Penn State would have to be down to see an upset.
All right, so we've talked a lot about Penn State's Nick Singleton today and the game that he was able to have, but Boise State, we got to talk about Ashton Jeanty. How fired up are you to see both of these run games?
I am, right, because if Boise State has any chance, it's going to be Ashton Jeanty. Now, the interesting thing, we were talking about Kevin Jennings earlier. Can Boise State's quarterback, Maddox Madsen, not make those crucial mistakes that Kevin Jennings did make in this game to keep them afloat? Mackenzie's talked about it. Boise State over the last few weeks, their defense has really come to the party. And when you go back to Ashton Jeanty's probably worst game of the season, it was UNLV, but that's when Madsen made some plays, not only with his mobility, but with his arm as well. So can he do that against this Penn State defense that we saw just dismantle SMU? And Boise State, when you would look at their offensive line compared to SMU, you would have to say they kind of favor each other, right, in regards to the talent on the offensive line. So Ashton Jeanty has been out of this world this year. DK already mentioned the Oregon game. He single-handedly put the team on his back and almost pulled off an upset, but this Penn State defense is way better than the Oregon defense.
They are. I'll be interested to see what Penn State has to do to stop Jeanty. Like if they can stop him with 7 men in the box and play traditional and mix up coverages on the backside.
They're loading the box.
But do you think they have to? Like if they might have to.
Yeah.
But see, that's where he is. But see, that's where I think is a real key. Like they might try to start early and not do it, but if he starts running on you. But that's why Maddox Madsen has had such a good year.
Correct.
He's only got 3 interceptions, 22 touchdowns. He's taking really good care of the football because he gets great matchups on the outside. A lot of single man-to-man coverage opportunities, and it's pretty easy for him. I don't think it's going to be easy against Penn State, and I do think they'll probably have to put up some more guys in the line of scrimmage, which will present the opportunities. But again, the guys will be much more covered. He's going to be under a little bit more duress. So I think that could be a key factor in the game if Boise State wants to keep it close or upset them. I think maybe one of those guys that aren't Ashton Jeanty has to step up, like a Maddox Madsen.
I was going to say, and his mobility will be a key in this, right? Him getting on the edge or scrambling when something isn't there. We saw that in the UNLV game and a couple other games. Him use his mobility to factor in them winning. I think he'll have to do that versus Penn State defense, especially this defensive line that can get after you.
I think Penn State can also move the chains on the ground. Like you look at what Boise State's been giving up, 217 yards on the ground to UNLV, 6.2 yards per carry, 134, 6.7 yards per carry to Oregon State. Like Penn State could, I know we're talking about.
They might run for 300.
This
is always the Jeanty story, but this Penn State back room might be a problem here.
And the best way to defend Ashton Jeanty is to have him sitting over on the bench while he's watching those other backs run up and down the field.
You know, we talk a lot about Penn State's path to the national championship being super favorable. Obviously, they're sitting in that 6th seed spot. I know you have them and Texas as your national championship matchup. But, you know, you guys have played this game. You know the players hear this. I'm not saying that they're relaxed heading into this game, but Leger, could you see them maybe overlooking this Boise State team?
They better not. Do you not know Boise State's history? Just ask Oklahoma Sooners about them.
Yeah.
This is a team that is notorious for taking down the big, quote-unquote, the big brother, right? So Boise State, Coach Danielson is going to have this team ready. They already, DK mentioned it, everybody's already talking about how this is a favorable matchup for Penn State. If they take care of business versus SMU, they get Boise State. Well, Boise State has to be sitting back and looking like, what you mean you get us? No, you get to play us, and you might take this L. So you can never overlook anybody. Say Drew Aller has a similar game that he had today, but Ashton Jeanty does go off. This game could get real interesting.
I think, that's why you see, in my opinion, such a small spread is because Boise State has that history of pulling off massive upsets. That's what's helping me rationalize why this is less than a 2-touchdown spread. So I think people are recognizing that, and I think they're comfortable here.
That and the Oregon game. That was a game for 193 yards, 3 touchdowns to Jeanty, and they lost by a field goal.
Correct.
So that's going to be a game that Boise State fans and Boise State backers are going to look to and say, but here, my thing is that Oregon game was completely different. They were still kind of figuring out what to do on offense. They were on the field a lot of time for the defense. No one really knew what Ashton Jeanty was already about. Maybe Oregon took them a little bit lightly. That will not be the case for Penn State. They will be geared up with the bullseye on Ashton Jeanty.
With now 2 first-round playoff games in the books, let's take a look at the updated odds to win the national championship here. And Kent, I'll come to you on this. Do we have any early predictions from a betting perspective for this next round, and what are you seeing here?
I'm not shocked to see Texas at plus 340. Now, to me, it's amazing that their odds are shorter than any team that has to play one less game to them. To me, that just goes to drive home the story that maybe this 5 seed, maybe this 6 seed was the better spot to be. Oregon hasn't even played yet. Georgia and Oregon are 100% locked into that second round, and they have longer odds than Texas. That tells you everything you need to know about maybe playing 2 games that are lesser is a better situation to be in than playing 1 game that's going to be a coin flip. Look at Oregon. They're going to have to play a pick'em on a neutral field against Ohio State or Tennessee.
So you have Penn State and Texas, Leger, as I mentioned in your national championship prediction. Do you have a predicted winner? If that happens?
I picked Texas in the beginning of the year. Now, Quinn Ewers, the way he's played the last 2 weeks, makes me nervous, and I wouldn't be surprised if Arch Manning, more specifically in the red zone, gets an opportunity to play today. But I think, to me, Texas is still the most complete team in all of football. When Quinn Ewers, you talked about it, is healthy. Maybe he's not healthy right now.
He's never played healthy, though. This is just how he plays at this point.
And then the decision-making is what questions me with Quinn Ewers. You went down through a breakdown in the pregame. You can't be late on the outside and throw the ball inside. That gets picked off every single time. But I like this Texas defense. They're one of the best defenses in stopping the run, and they have guys that can get after the quarterback. Trey Moore has really, come on the last few weeks. I think Texas is the most complete team in the nation right now.
All right, so I know your pick for the Fiesta Bowl. I know you got Penn State getting the win here. Danny, I'll come to you with a game pick for this next round, the quarterfinal.
For Penn State, I think they advance. I love the story of Boise State. I just think it's going to be too much. And we've seen the physicality of the teams that have dominated so far, the more physical teams. I think Penn State has too much of an edge there.
Ken, who you got in this one?
Definitely Penn State. I'm trying to find a Penn State first quarter line already.
She's like, what can I
I'm on FanDuel right now cooking.
She's cooking over here. All right, we'll put a bow on that. Here is one final look at the updated college football playoff bracket that is now starting to take some shape. 2 games in the books for the first round, 2 to go for the remainder of the day. More from us on the other side here on CBS Sports HQ.